Welcome to Listen Up Now to let you know what's going on in your world and my world. Your guy, my guy, Rye guy.
Welcome back to the show. We're joined by our super duper guest.
My name is Ivo Njosa. I'm the CEO of Data Clean Hub.
Ivo, thank you so much for joining us here today. We're really excited to get this opportunity to sit down, get to know a little bit more about you, what you do, and some of the amazing projects you're involved in. For starters, I did want to just kind of start with a little about your background. For example, I know you've worked with the World Bank, African Development Bank, OECD, and dozens of central banks around the world. How did your journey into data governance and information systems even begin? Where was that spark?
Well, that spark started with my degrees, of course. I have a degree in math, and I have a master's in information systems from Johns Hopkins University.
Nice.
At that time, I had some friends working in international organizations, and they thought maybe I could bring my skill and my skill set to some of the work they were doing in that development arena. So the challenge started, of course, was when the World Bank needed somebody who could develop a system to collect data, clean, consistent data for them around the world. Because at that time, in the early 90s, the challenge for them was to get clean, consistent data from around the world. And that's what the World Bank does. It collects a lot of data from developing countries to be able to do an assessment. So I took that challenge, and that's how the journey began.
Well, listen, Ivo, it sounds already we're going to have a great conversation. And I'm going to start off by aging myself. You said in the 90s when you jumped into the data cleaning world per se. What was your experience, or what do you remember about Y2K, especially working with such a global organization?
It's a good question. It's an interesting question. I thought at the time, again, I was very much in the domain, and I thought the Y2K was
Overhyped?
way overhyped.
Okay.
Way overhyped. And it's interesting again you bring that up, because I was one of the people who said that this is just, it's a nothing burger, if I may.
Okay. We love nothing burgers.
So that's pretty much how I saw it at the time, and that's how it turned out to be.
Now, are those same nothing burgers still nothing burgers in today's world of technology, especially in your world of data management?
No, I wouldn't say that. There's a sea change, dramatic change. Because right now, what am I saying? The world is driven by data. With the advent of artificial intelligence, AI, everything is driven by data. The key now to any effective artificial information platform is the data that drives it. If that data is not clean and consistent, well, you get what you put in. The old adage that, junk in, junk out applies very much today. Every artificial AI system is driven by clean and consistent data.
Well, a lot of people hear data management and probably think spreadsheets, but your work literally has impacted countries around the world. How would you explain what you do to someone outside of the tech world?
Going back to my work in development organizations, World Bank, African Development Bank, OECD, a little bit of that, and UN, a lot of UN organizations. The challenge they have, just like the challenges you have with organizations today, is data, clean and consistent data. Yep. That's one of the biggest challenges of our time. Now, back in the day, as I was mentioning, the World Bank collects data from developing countries around the world. So when they say the average per capita income in country X is this amount, is based on that data collect. If they say the average child gets X amount of nutrition a day, it's based on that data they collect. Somebody has to actually go out there and collect that data. Quite often they rely on countries to do that. But again, this is a very technical and challenging work, and countries don't always do an effective job of doing that. So quite often the bank would send somebody to those countries to help them, to support them. Else, and I'll show you some of the inconsistent data we would get. During the analysis stage here in Washington, we would get situations where you would get a 9-year-old girl with twins, or a 5-year-old with a PhD. That sort of thing. I'm just giving you simple examples of the kind of data we would get if you had not really made sure that you filtered or controlled the quality of the data during the collection stage. And that's the key. And clearly, when you look at it during the analysis stage, it's clear that it's wrong. But you just can't say, oh, this is wrong, I'll make the changes. Statistically, you have to be careful when you're collecting the data. You just can't dismiss it because it just looks unusual. Because every once in a while, it's actually true.
Absolutely. And I know this, along many other things, are the items that you're passionate about. And it all comes back to finding that efficiency, finding that way to make everything work in conjunction with each other and get the best information to then move from. I know this is switching gears a little bit, but I know something else that you're passionate about is tennis. I know you actually play over at the Aspen Hill Club here in Maryland. So I did want to ask, how did tennis become such a big part of your life alongside this global career?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that. I started playing tennis when I believe I was about 11 years old. I had just come into the U.S. My father was a diplomat, so we had come to the U.S. as a diplomat, and my first passion at the time was soccer, football as we call it back in the old country, and so but it just wasn't back then. The volume of players now has increased, but back in the day when we came in the U.S. in the late 70s, there just weren't that many guys my age playing it on an everyday basis. So I picked up tennis, which just seemed to be something I seem to just gravitate to, and so I started playing. And as I improved and I developed a love for the game, I attended Bethesda Cheviches High School (BCC), and I played. I started as number 4 singles player for the school. Then my last year, I ended up playing number 1 singles for Bethesda Cheviches High School. And again, I was lucky to get a tennis scholarship to college. At one time, during my college days, I thought I would become a professional, but reality quickly set in. and so luckily, as a back, how would I say, as
secondary option.
I say, just in case. As a backup, if I can use our data management term, if I can back up, I majored in math. And so I graduated, since I didn't make it in tennis, I graduated a degree in math, which quickly catapulted me to the information systems engineering world, where I ended up at the World Bank.
And I wanted to ask as well, I know most competitive athletes eventually deal with injuries. Have you ever needed physical therapy during your tennis career?
As a matter of fact, I have. There are a couple of times, even from my college days, where I've been injured until now, where I'm not sure if it's just injury or arthritis coming in because of my age. And that I'm not sure yet. And it's an area that I need to explore a lot more. This is why this marriage, if you will, between our organization and yours, I think is going to be fruitful for both of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you did do that physical therapy, what was the experience like? What did you think about it?
One thing, I thought it made a big difference in terms of that. Let's look at the longevity. Some of the exercises that they gave me, that they suggested, during when I was participating in it, I continue to do that until today. And I think it makes a difference in terms of longevity, to minimize injuries and so on. For instance, doing a warm-up before playing tennis wasn't something that I used to practice religiously. But because of my discussions and advice from the physical therapist, it's something that I do religiously now. And then the after play warm up, or the after play also stretching.
Oh yeah.
That's some of the things again some of the advice I benefited working with physical therapists over time.
While we're on that subject, while you're there creating a program, you've created an amazing website for our company, and more importantly, I believe you're going to be creating many websites for future companies. When you're putting together that website, are you tapping in more into the B side of your brain, or are you still staying very analytical in the A portion of your brain?
While I would love to take credit for the website, I suppose everything starts and stops with the CEO, which in this case I am the CEO. I also love to give credit to my 9 developers, great engineers that assist me. Yeah, there are 9 of them that work for me. They're scattered around the world, and so one of the advantages I have with this setup is that we can respond to all our clients at any given time. As you've seen from my experience working with us, we usually need a maximum of maybe a couple of hours to be able to respond, because I always have some developer somewhere around the world who's awake and ready to respond to our clients.
That's something I can attest to personally, having worked one-on-one. There is always responsiveness, great customer service, and if you need a change done, you can always have that response, that feedback immediately. It definitely has been a fantastic process going through, working with Data Clean Hub, working with the developers, and ultimately putting a new vision for a website onto the page.
And once again, the website, amazing. Please check it out over at startptnow. Take a first-hand look at the great work that's being performed over here by Data Clean Hub. And I love the name, by the way. What made you create that name?
One of my developers actually came up with the name during our planning stages, where we were thinking of a name that would incorporate, because we're very much active also in the data space, where we help companies to develop, we help companies develop clean and consistent data pipelines to make sure that they can use it for some of their other work that they're doing.
Okay.
Definitely want to give a big shout out. Anyone who's looking for website services, data cleaning services, where can they find you online?
Yes, we can be found online, and thank you for that. We can be found online at datacleanhub.com. That's datacleanhub, one word, .com. We can easily be found there, and from then on you can get all the other information about us, the phone numbers, and the email, info@datacleanhub.com. Once again, my name is Ivo Njosa. I'm the CEO, and then so thank you very much for that.
Of course, of course.
Appreciate you being here and taking the time and really educating us on the data world. I think some of us get confused what that really means and how we can really use it to our advantage.
And I think tying everything full circle, getting back, we've touched on everything from your background to data cleaning to website development to athletics and your time as a tennis player. Do you find any crossover between, or if you do, what would you see to be the biggest crossover between being an athlete and being a systems or data person?
One of the key ones that I can see, if you remember a few minutes ago, I was asking you what's the common denominator between golf and tennis,
Yes.
and so on. So from that standpoint, I could also see how I would say focus, staying focused. That's one word I would use, where I can draw a straight line between the two.
Okay.
Especially in tennis, you need to stay. We talk about concentration being. It's another. It's a word for being focused. Having a plan and staying focused on that plan. I see that in the same thing when I look at it in just about all the domains, actually.
We thank you so much for joining us, sharing
Really
this
appreciate
information. Really only the top recommendation from us here at Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine Center. You can see our website done by them right online right now at startptnow.com. And the last plug, if you're in the market for physical therapy as well, look us up right there, startptnow.com.